and out the door and homes weatherized. As I'm sure you're aware, the goal of the weatherization program was to assist low-income individuals by getting into their homes, either conducting an energy audit or some type of assessment to weatherize their homes in a variety of ways to make their homes more energy efficient and hopefully save those homeowners funds at the same time accomplishing some energy efficiencies in California. I'll take you to the table on page 2, and what this table shows is not only the Recovery Act grant, but also 2 annual grants. And as you can see, the annual grants are relatively small. That's typically what the program looks like. The Recovery Act, as I indicated, California was awarded $186 million. As of April 30th of this year, as you can see on the table, the department had awarded $141 million out of $158 million. So we still have about $17 million that hasn't even been awarded to service providers or to entities to weatherize homes. The other figure that is concerning is the unspent funds. You see approximately $90 million that has not yet been spent as of April 30th of 2011. With 12 months to go, that's a significant amount of money that still needs to be expended by California, in addition to the annual grants, which expire in June of 2012. So there's upwards of $100 million that needs to be expended within the next 12 to 15 months. Actually less than that now with the March 31st date. So why is California struggling? 2 things, and as you mentioned in your opening comments. Originally, the department had expected these weatherization measures, they call them, to cost upwards of about $3,600 to $3,700 per home, depending on the types of measures that would be installed in those homes. Well, the actual amount came in much less than that, and I'm going to explain why. The actual amounts was around $2,500 per home. As a result, we're not spending as much. In addition, production was at first not meeting expectations. Production has increased, but again, we have concerns about whether or not the providers out there are going to be able to meet the targets to expend all these dollars and essentially, as you indicate, keep people employed, employ additional individuals, and certainly weatherize homes. So we have concerns both with the Recovery Act grant and the annual grants as far as whether or not California is going to be able to expend those dollars in time. One key problem, and we identified this back in the first audit report that we issued in February of 2012, or 2010, was there were many service providers that hadn't been on contract yet. And in specific regions in the state, California did not have service providers. The Bay Area, both the city and county of San Francisco and the Oakland area did not have providers. And then Los Angeles area, certainly there were not enough providers available back then. The department was able to contract with some providers in all of those regions. In Oakland, they contracted with a provider who estimated that they would have 269 homes weatherized by April of 2011. Unfortunately, when we went in to look, we found that they had not completed any units as of April 30th. So they didn't even weatherize one home, and they had estimated or forecast that they would have weatherized 269. We found similar circumstance in city and county of San Francisco. The forecast was 204 units. The actual completion was 0 units. And then in Los Angeles, similar, where they forecast they would have weatherized over 800 homes by May 31st. When we looked at the data, we saw that only 78 units had been weatherized, so falling far short of the expectations in the forecast. And what that means is homes are not being weatherized, and money is not being expended to benefit. The other concern that we had, and U.S. Department of Energy, when they came out and conducted some visits, had concerns about, as I call them, measures, the types of things that were being done. The expectation was that you would go in and either conduct an energy audit or use some existing protocols to determine the types of weatherization measures. And the more you do, the more expensive it's going to be, but certainly the more benefit that low-income family will achieve, and certainly the more jobs you're going to create, the more work you're you're doing on the homes. And clearly the objective was to increase the energy efficiency of these homes. Well, when the U.S. Department of Energy came out in the fall of 2010, they raised concerns with the department, with CSD, saying basically you're going in, the providers are changing light bulbs, putting CFLs in, putting a blanket on the water heater, low flow shower heads. We're not seeing attic insulation, weather stripping, perhaps modification of air conditioning and heating units, those types of things. The big ticket items were not being conducted. Part of the problem was related to not having the service providers properly trained, but also not getting these new protocols in place and approved by the U.S. Department of Energy. So they worked with U.S. Department of Energy, got some protocols established in the fall of 2010 in October, but Community Services didn't instruct their providers to start using those protocols until 2011. So we're delayed another 4 or 5 months. So the new protocols were supposed to be put in place effective February 1st, 2011. So that's when you would expect to see more of these measures being installed. But unfortunately, when we looked at some of the information CSD provided us, they hadn't fully trained the weatherization workers until April. So again, you have another 2 or 3 month delay. And these are all of the reasons that are causing these dollars to be unspent and the providers to not be conducting full retrofits or weatherization of homes. So the U.S. Department of Energy conducted a follow-up visit in April of 2011 that we looked at, and again they had concerns about the types of measures that were being done. They weren't seeing these more enhanced measures. They were still seeing the basics, as I referred to, the light bulbs, the shower heads, etc. So what we present in our letter in a couple of tables is 2 things need to happen. Production needs to increase and or the amount per home needs to increase. So if you look at page 5 of the letter report that we issued at table 3, the average monthly production thus far, and we looked at from a 1-year window, April 2010 to April 2011, under the Recovery Act, we're seeing about 1,877 homes being weatherized. So what their capacity going forward would be is about 20,000 homes. If they still spend the average of $2,500 per home, they're going to fall about 14,000 units short, because you would need to weatherize 35,000 homes, but currently their capacity is only about 20,000 homes. So if we don't increase production, we're going to fall short, but we also need to increase the average cost of those homes, and the way to do that is to install additional measures, and that's what Table 4 talks about. Table 4 is saying we have about $90 million left. The capacity is only 20,000 homes. If you still spend about $2,500 per home, we're going to fall far short. We would be about that $37 million, as I indicated, would be left on the table. So to be able to expend those dollars, staying at the same pace, the same number of units or homes being weatherized, the measures would have to be costing a little over $4,000, which means they need to be installing more types of energy efficient measures in these homes. So we have serious concerns because we have been looking at this for about 1.5 years. Like I said, we issued the first audit in February of 2010. We raised concerns about the number of service providers back then, their forecast for the number of homes that would be weatherized. And certainly the U.S. Department of Energy has also come out and looked at some of the activity that's been done and raised concerns about whether or not California is going to be able to achieve its original goal of weatherizing thousands of homes and providing services to low-income families, but also to create the jobs that we had hoped to create in California through this program. So that's kind of a high-level overview of the letter report that we issued this past July, last month. So I can stop there and answer any questions you might have, Senator.
I do have a couple questions, sure. But I'd want to give the department a chance to sort of present on their behalf. And let me toss the first question at them, and you can respond to this and then continue with what you'd like to share today. But if the department can't achieve the numbers we thought we could once upon a time, that's okay. just tell us on a timely basis so that we have the option and can exercise the option of redirecting the funds to areas where we can get the money on the street, put people back to work, and achieve the energy savings through other strategies to actually achieve the energy savings. So in your mind, what's the time frame for making that determination of switching gears?
Mr.